are finally here. Got the M5 ready to do the suspension on it. Installing some H&R lowering springs. I didn't think I would be doing this so soon. Things took a little bit of a turn last weekend when I put the tires on the wheels, but my landlord was nice enough to lend me his garage while he is away. So let's see if we can get this done. Alright guys, so day one of the suspension install is down. I left my other camera recording time-lapse and the battery died, so I didn't want to stop working. I was already behind. I tried to leave work early. Didn't happen. I had to leave actually later than usual. Then the way I come home was just jam-packed with traffic everywhere, and yeah, it took me about an hour and a half to get home. Then once I got home, I had to swap cars, go get the M5 at my storage garage and put it in this garage. Then I forgot some tools, and finally I started working on the car maybe 4 hours after I had originally planned. So I didn't have much time. I only got the fronts done. I didn't record much because, like I said, I had my my action cam recording a time lapse and I forgot about it. Just got into the work and it died. The battery died by the time I was gonna go and get down into the suspension. This is probably one of the easiest cars I've ever had to do lowering springs on, or any suspension work. This is the first time I actually wrench on E60 M5. I've had a few other BMWs before which I wrenched on, but this is the first time I work on a car of this kind of caliber, and I must say it's very, very easy. And with that said, it's very, very easy to break things. If you have EDC, you have to take care that you don't damage those sensors, and yeah, just make sure you put it back the same way. Luckily I put everything back and I did not get any fault codes, any lights turn on once I turned the car on after, so that's a good sign. Alright guys, so we're getting ready to jack up the rear of the car. I'm gonna do the same as the front and jack up both tires. Now there's a little bit of a method to this. You definitely want to chock your wheels just to prevent the car from rolling forward and causing a lot of damage. Okay, you want to come here. This big piece here is the lower control arm for the rear. And this is where I advise, and it is advised online, that you jack the vehicle up. A lot of times this is the rear differential. You do not want to jack from that point. They also say if you absolutely need to jack the rear of the car together at the same time, you can jack it by here, the subframe. But they do not advise that just because it's kind of narrow and there's really not much space for you to put a jack in there. Jack it up from here, you see you got plenty of space under that lower control arm there. Jack it up on each side, one side at a time, and put the jack stands on one side, then go to the next. So yeah, as you can see, I took out my my mats right here on the floor. I took out this side, the compartment, you can see it right there. And you got a little bit of clips to undo here. It's easier to get to by taking that off, but you absolutely don't need to. To take that one off, you're gonna have like one clip here and one up here, which in here translates to, they're pretty straightforward. You can see the hole there for that one, and this one here is on the other side. So you don't really need to take this off, but I just wanted to facilitate this whole process. So again, this cover here is the main cover you need to concern yourself with. So you're gonna have another one up here by the seat release, another clip on this. So once you got that, you're just gonna want to pull this out of the way, and this is what we're working with. It's a little bit of wire harnesses in the way, but essentially you need to remove this foam pad here. Let's see if I can pull that out. Just kind of jammed in there. Pull it back and then pull it out from this side. So this is just covering the strut tower bolts. Yeah, let's see if I can get in there. And there they are. That's what we're gonna try to take off right now. You have very limited space. That's why I think it is better to actually take these things out. Alright guys, so the driver's side strut is out. Here's the electronic damping control cable. It was a little harder than I initially thought. I had to loosen this upper arm here. I just loosened it, pushed it back a little bit. It's I believe a 21mm socket there, but I had to use a crescent wrench with a 10mm socket on the front of the bolt, and I was able to push this out enough to kind of get the strut to slip down past the lower control arm and get a rag and pull it out of here. Alright guys, so here we have the components for the top hat on the shock. This is an 18mm nut for the actual shock bolt. I recommend maybe like an 18mm open end box wrench to get that. And the top of the strut has another small area here that you need to grip to get this off. I thought it was an 8mm wrench, but I would recommend more of a crescent tool to get it as tight of a grip as you can, because my 8mm did slip once, and then I had to use the crescent wrench just to get it as close as possible and limit it from slipping like that, because you're going to damage these threads. This is the little housing, clip housing. Just take a little flathead and push this in and down, and this will come undone. And then all this stuff flips, all this stuff passes right through the sensor plug. So this is the assembly back. Make sure none of these washers or none of this stuff, I don't think it comes out, but just make sure this is intact. This is the top hat. Put the spring in, put the top hat in. This goes on top here. Then you have your nut. And lastly, this clipping here. Alright guys, so I'm still on the driver's side. The strut and spring is in. I didn't look at how it came off before or looked at the other side thoroughly enough, I put the strut backwards onto the suspension here. This bushing has to go on this side, the side to the trailing arm. I personally think that these are way harder to do than the front. So if I were to ever do this again, I would definitely start with the rears and leave the fronts for last. I gotta bring this thing down, loosen the top bolt again, and adjust the top pad, just because it doesn't have enough play to kind of turn the whole thing, even though the spring has less tension on it. Look out for that. Make sure you're not going metal to metal here. I saw this and I was like, something's not right. I don't think this should be metal to metal. There should definitely be a gap or some kind of bushing, and I realized that I put it backwards. So yeah, I looked at the strut on the other side and I was judging by the sticker. I'm like, okay, this sticker's sticking out, so maybe this is the way it goes on the other side. That is not the case. It should not be metal to metal, and there's a bushing on the other side for that, so that you can tighten it here. Okay guys, so back in the house, we are finally done with the suspension install. They do say that the rear suspension is way easier than the front, and I'm gonna say by personal experience, at least for me, it was not. The rear was very much more involved than the front. I feel like the front was the straightforward one of the bunch. It just consisted of loosening up a couple bolts, pushing the knuckle assembly down, and just taking the spring out without even fully taking the strut out. I'm probably gonna do another episode to reveal the actual tires and to do a little bit like kind of a first impressions review on the suspension, the H&R Springs, and we'll see you in the next episode for the wheel review.